Hi everyone, today's talk is going to be about vaccinations, specifically what we as at Highfield insist on. It can be quite confusing with vaccinations to know what your dog needs to have when they come into kennels, how often they need to have them. So I'm going to go through all that with you and what the vaccinations cover, just a little bit on that. And I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on kennel cough because that's the one everyone tends to get confused with. So as far as vaccinations go, initially as a puppy, you have vaccinations at 8 weeks, and then 2 to 4 weeks later they have a booster and they're fully covered after that. Then they should be vaccinated yearly after that. If you miss your vaccination by a month or two, your vet will probably just give a booster as they would if it had been a year later. If they lapse for quite a long time, 5-6 months, a year, you're probably going to have the full course again. And you need to be aware that if they have to have the full course again, they're not fully covered until they've had the second vaccination 2 to 4 weeks later. So if you are looking at putting your dog in kennels, it's really important you make sure your vaccinations are up to date in case you have to go down the road of having the full course again. What they're vaccinated for? Well, one of the vaccinations is for parvovirus, distemper and hepatitis. All three of these are really nasty, horrible diseases and are generally fatal. They're not particularly rife in the area because there's a high vaccination rate around here. The more people that get their dogs vaccinated, the less chance there is of these diseases making a big comeback. And as they are pretty nasty diseases, we don't want that. So it's so important that you keep the vaccinations up to date. You often find these diseases in puppies that have come from puppy farms because they don't vaccinate there. Puppies are all mixed together. They don't do the right things by them. And if a puppy gets this, it's probably going to die. Different story, different video, but this is why it's really important that you research when you're buying a puppy and don't just buy a puppy from anybody. But that's another video. Back to vaccinations. The other one they're vaccinated for is leptospirosis. Now, lepto can be caught from rats. So if your dog swims in the river, goes down the dike, drinks out puddles, they're all places where there's probably been rats and they can pick up lepto. So really important again that you get them vaccinated for that. Lepto can be caught by humans. It's what we call Wheals disease in humans. So you can catch it from your dog. So if you've got, your kids, you want to keep them safe as well, you really need to make sure you get that one done. We do live in an area where there are a lot of rats, so you have to be really careful. The lepto vaccination is generally given every year here. The other vaccinations every 2 to 3 years depending on your vet. Some may still give them yearly. Every vets have different sort of vaccinating routines, and if you read about it online, there's lots of different things that you read. So it's best to just ask your vet what they do and when they give everything, so that you make sure that you know when your dog needs to go back for vaccinations. Generally the distemper, parvo, hepatitis is done at the same time as the lepto. And then the other vaccination they have, which isn't always done at the same time, some vets will do it at the same time as those, others will say wait a couple of weeks, and that's kennel cough. This is the one that confuses everybody. The kennel cough vaccination isn't actually a vaccination, it's a squirt up the nose. Now, some people say that if they've got a flat-nosed dog, they can't have the vaccination. That's not something that I've found. From my experiences at Highfield, we have a lot of flat-nosed breeds in who are vaccinated with that and they're perfectly okay with it. However, if you feel that your dog shouldn't have that one, can't have that one, then there may be kennels that will take the dog without the vaccination. At Highfield, we do insist on the kennel cough vaccination. It's the only way as a kennels we find we can keep kennel cough out. I'll tell you a little bit more about kennel cough so you can understand it a bit more. It's called kennel cough, but that's not its proper name. Its proper name is infectious tracheobronchitis. But it's nicknamed kennel cough because in a kennel environment, it spreads really quickly. Because the dogs are in close quarters, it spreads quickly. So most kennels will now insist on vaccination because that's the best way to keep it out. And you find it's not quite so prevalent in kennels as it used to be because more are vaccinating for it now. Some of the smaller kennels don't insist on it because they are smaller and there's less chance of the dogs getting kennel cough while they're there. Whether you choose a kennels that does or does insist on it is personal choice. Like I said, some of the people with the flat-nosed breeds don't like to have it done. That's fine. You will need to find a kennels that will take them without that vaccination. It's something, again, to discuss with your vet about whether they should have it or not. But it is, again, the vet's personal opinion. What one vet says might differ from another vet. But the kennel cough vaccination has to be done at least 10 days before boarding when you come to Highfield. That advice varies from vet to vet, kennels to kennels. Some say 2 days, some say 10, some say 5, some say 14. So best to check with your kennels what they advise before you go and have the vaccination done. As I said, at Highfield, it's 10 days. The reason for that is it's a live vaccine, and they can get a mild case of kennel cough after having the vaccination. So that 10 days ensures that if they do come down with a little mild case of it, it doesn't matter, they've got time to get over it and be well again to come back into kennels after they've had it done. The sooner before kennels you get it done, the better. And if you have it done yearly anyway, get it done every year at the same time. We advise yearly for the vaccination. I have read information online that says 6 months. As far as I'm aware, most of the local vets around here say every year. But again, it's worth discussing with your vet what they advise and how often they should have it. Now, the kennel cough vaccination doesn't mean they're not going to get kennel cough ever. It only covers the more common strains of kennel cough, so your dog can still get kennel cough after having the vaccination. You tend to find it's a much milder case and they get over it a lot more quickly. So if you have got a younger or older dog, having the kennel cough is very beneficial because younger and older dogs can become very ill from having it. Dogs in between those categories tend to just get it, get over it, they're fine. But some do have very bad reactions to kennel cough. So I personally would always have my pet vaccinated against it. The other thing to make sure you do is keep your card up to date. We've all done it, gone to the vets to get the vaccinations done for our pet and forgotten to take the card with us. That's fine, it's not a problem, just make sure you take your card back and get it updated next time. We can't accept dogs without proof of vaccination at Highfield, we do have to see the cards. And it's really important you make sure it's filled in properly with the date that the vaccination was done and the date the next vaccination is due, so that we can see exactly what they've had done when the next ones are due. We make a record of it and then we'll let you know when we need to see it again. At the moment, we're not allowing you to bring the vaccination cards with you. We're asking you to forward it to us by email or Facebook Messenger beforehand. If you're not technologically advanced, you can send it to us in the post. We have found that this is actually much easier for us because everything's done in advance. The problem we find with having them on arrival is that sometimes the vaccination cards haven't been filled in correctly, or it's not been filled in at all, and we have to ring the vets then and check what's been done. If the vets are busy, we could be on hold for a long while. If you're in a hurry to get away because you've got a flight to catch, you haven't really got time to be waiting around. And there have been cases where the owners have thought the dogs were vaccinated and we've rung the vets and they've said that they haven't been. And in that situation, you've then got to try and get your dog into the vets and vaccinated so it can come into kennels, sort of in a very short space of time. So we may continue with the sending you vaccinations beforehand, so that if there are any problems, we can pick up on it and you can get it sorted well before the date they're due to board. I'd quite be interested to see what you think about that, whether you think it's a good idea sending it in advance, whether you like that idea, or whether you prefer to bring it with you on arrival. We've had a bit of a mixed reaction from it so far. It does seem that a lot of people are quite happy to send them beforehand and don't have a problem with that. Now, something else that you may or may not have heard of is titer testing. This is where your dog has a blood test to check the levels of vaccination they've got still in their blood system and to determine whether they need to be vaccinated again in a year, 18 months, 2 years. This isn't something that we can accept as proof of vaccination. We have had a few people ask about it over the years. Generally, people only ask because their dogs have had a bad reaction to the vaccination and they're looking at alternatives. Unfortunately, the terms of our licence and our insurance state that dogs have to be fully vaccinated with proof, and the titer testing isn't sufficient proof. If your dog does have a bad reaction to the vaccinations and you're not keen on having them done again, you may have to look into alternatives to boarding, maybe a pet sitter, home boarder, something like that. The pet sitting option is probably the one that you would have to go down. There may be home boarders that take them without proof of vaccination, but most will insist on it. So it's something to bear in mind if your dog has had bad reactions to the vaccinations in the past. I think that's pretty much everything. If you've got any questions, please ask me. Post them in the comments below. Anything else you want to know regarding vaccinations? Any suggestions for future videos? Stay safe. Hope to see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.